Over the past few years, we have seen a lot of great things happen in the watch industry. From new releases to technical breakthroughs, there's a lot to be thankful for. However, things are not always peaches and cream. Over the same span of time, we have experienced a massive, unfortunate uptick in reported watch theft. Channels like Paul Thorpe and others have done a great job of covering these crimes and have brought to light the type of ruthless criminals these thieves really are. With the secondary market over the last couple years exploding, especially around brands like Rolex and AP, it's no surprise that these iconic watches have unfortunately become the targets of pickpockets and thieves. As someone who likes to travel with my watches and wear them and not have to worry about them, I wanted to create this video to share with you a couple basic tips and tricks to hopefully ensure that you and your watches remain safe and secure when you're on the go. Please keep in mind that these are just preventative measures that you can take. None of them are going to guarantee that you won't be targeted, and unfortunately, the best way to prevent watch crime is to not wear it at all. But if you're like me and you actually want to enjoy your watch, especially when you're on vacation, here are a few things that you can do to ensure that the process is a little bit safer and you can have some peace of mind. Before we jump into tip number one, I would like to say thank you to our subscribers. If you're new to the channel, take some time to check out our past videos and please hit that like and subscribe button. We want to know what you think about this video. It helps keep us making great content for you. Tip number one is carry a pouch. My first tip is a simple one. If you can carry a leather or a small cloth bag with you, something you can stick in your jacket pocket or in a shopping bag, it is going to allow you to easily put your watch in it, get it out of the way, get it out of the line of sight if you find yourself in a potentially high-risk area. Of course, there is nothing wrong with wanting to wear your watch out to a nice dinner or a show, but you have to be careful about the process of getting there and, of course, getting back. By having some kind of pouch or some kind of soft bag that isn't going to scratch your watch, you can easily conceal it, tuck it away, and then pull it out once you are in a safe place. You can also roll your sleeve down over your watch. When I'm traveling, I try and always have a light jacket with me, even in the summer, just in case I find myself in an area that seems a little bit sketchy. That way I can pull my sleeve down over my watch, maybe tuck it in my pocket, and that way nobody is going to actually see what's on your wrist. If you find yourself in a situation where you can't carry a bag or it's too hot to even bring a light jacket with you or you don't have long sleeves on, just try and get your watch in your pocket if you feel like something is amiss. Unfortunately, there have even been a few robberies that have actually taken place inside a restaurant, which you'd think would be safe. Last year, there was a man dining in a Beverly Hills restaurant with a $500,000 Richard Mille watch on. This was something that was clearly premeditated, carefully planned, and the odds of something like that happening to you are very, very, very low. However, this does bring me to tip number two. You gotta be careful about tagging your location on social media if you're also gonna be showing off an expensive watch. Of course, we like to share the things that we have on social media. That's kind of part of the fun of owning some of these watches and toys, but at the same time, you're also broadcasting that you have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on your wrist and exactly where you are. And it's kind of hard to separate those things, but once you realize that's what you're doing, it should curb that behavior because you have to be careful. In fact, I would go so far to say don't post your watches until you and the watch are far away from where that picture is taken. It's fine to tag it, but maybe do it after you're a couple miles away from that exact spot. This is something the watch community saw in action with a pair of devastating robberies experienced by the timepiece gentleman. A crew of professional thieves were able to scope out what the watches were in his possession, where he was staying, and when he was home. You cannot underestimate the diligence that some of these criminals do when they are looking for their next victim. And of course, the reason that they were able to pinpoint his location was because of his posts on social media showing both the watches and exactly where he was. If you wish to post your watches, I suggest looking for a modern community page on Facebook, Reddit, or WatchCrunch so that you're talking to enthusiasts and not telling the entire world what you have and where you are. This is just me talking, but if you were just into watches for the Instagram likes, then I suggest maybe you should be looking for a new hobby. Tip number three, be vigilant, informed, and insured. Our third tip is one that you should be doing already. That is keeping informed on the tactics being employed by these thieves. In London, it has been confirmed that there are spotters for high-end watches usually walking around high-end shopping and dining establishments. It may be hard to spot these people because they are of course hiding in plain sight and wearing street clothes, but keep an eye out for people following you or any unnecessary attention. Another form of watch theft that we haven't covered are internet scams. Obviously, these are a little different than an actual physical robbery, but you should be aware of these methods as well. A few examples would be paying for a watch before it arrives and the seller reverses the package. Another example would be selling the watch and then having the PayPal transaction disputed or a credit card chargeback. There are countless ways to get scammed out there, so do your research before you do any deals relating to watches. We also did an entire video on buying pre-owned watches, so click the link above me if you want to check it out. When it comes to being vigilant in person, I always suggest walking in a group of 3 or more. This will lower the chances that the thief will feel emboldened to approach you. If you are going to be in an area that is new to you, it could be helpful to plan your route ahead of time to minimize your chances of being caught off guard or worse, led down an alley that you're not comfortable with. Using Uber or other ride-sharing apps can also be a good alternative to walking on foot, and though they might be a little bit more expensive, they might save you a very painful memory. It's also important to consider having your watches insured for theft. It may cost a little extra, but it could end up saving you a lot of money in the long run. A lot of people have their watches insured on a homeowner's policy, but not always does that homeowner's policy stipulate that the watches are protected the minute they leave the threshold or the door of your home. So you want to make sure that if you have them on a policy like that, that there is a rider specifically stipulating theft and also that they're going to be protected no matter where you are in the world. Tip number 4, buy a cheap beater watch. For tip number 4, I want to suggest getting a cheap watch that you like but can afford to lose, worst comes to worst. Look, if you're truly in an area or situation where you can't wear your nicest watches, it's still nice to have something on your wrist. If I'm going to walk through a high crime area that I know about, there's no chance that I'm going to be bringing my Royal Oak, whether I have a pouch or not. For times like these, I usually just turn to a trusty G-Shock or maybe a simple Timex to do the job. This way, I'm still able to enjoy the sensation of wearing a watch without having to worry about my arm being chopped off. Something we should remember is that watches are not worth our lives. If you are being robbed, I suggest you comply and allow the authorities to deal with the situation after the fact. This is of course a lot easier if you're wearing a Timex than that Rolex, so just keep that in mind the next time you go out. All right, tip number 5, use common sense. Our last tip is the most obvious one, but I think it's worth repeating. Use common sense. If your gut is telling you that something isn't good, it probably isn't. You should listen to that and act. For example, if you're wearing a Rolex Daytona, maybe don't take an impromptu walk through a place you've never been before by yourself. Or if you're buying a new Patek, think about putting the box in a Trader Joe's bag when you leave the store. Don't be broadcasting to the world that you just spent $100,000 on a watch by the bag itself. The little things really do add up in these cases, and the more preventative measures you take, the more likely you are going to be successful and can just get back to enjoying your watches. This tip, of course, goes for watch dealers too. I know it's popular to meet up with your watch dealer at a coffee shop or a restaurant, but this can be very dangerous for both you and them. Consider doing all deals behind closed doors as to not draw unnecessary attention to yourself. To sum up all the points we've gone over today, your life is not worth more than your watches. It's a terrible shame that us as collectors have to even deal with the fear of wearing our watches that we've worked so hard for, worrying about them, but unfortunately, these are the times we're living in and you have to be vigilant. I don't want to discourage anyone from collecting or enjoying their watches and wearing them out because it's still a very safe hobby. You just have to, again, use a little common sense and navigate. If you made it this far in the video, I would like to say thank you again for watching. We'd love to hear your stories, maybe any other preventative tips that you have about wearing your watches, some travel stories, so go ahead and leave those comments below. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. And of course, if you happen to be in Boston, please give us a visit at our 39 Newbury Street location or see us online at shrevecrumpandlow.com. Again, I've been your host, Jack Tyler, and thanks for spending a little time with us here today.